The Everything Sequel podcast is brought to you by the Vegas Beer Guys and 2T Fitness.
The Everything Sequel podcast contains explicit language. You have been forewarned. Of the How Dare You Awards, joining me, as always, your friend and mine, Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions. Give it to me.
Time for a cozy catch-up later. Sorry, there are no good quotables in this movie.
I was just going to say, that's what you picked?
Well, what would you pick?
Well, it's a fair point.
I just like that line, sometimes it's just a line, it's not necessarily a good line, it's a line that stands out for me, and I think, to put that line, time for a cozy catch-up later, I'm like, when? If not now, when? Nothing's happening right now. Let's do it now.
That's funny. Well, of course, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, a 2010 film, yet again directed by David Yates. I can't believe this movie's a decade old.
I can't believe it's only taken me a decade to see it.
You'll get your revenge on me at some point.
Oh yeah,
I know you have plans.
I have plans, yeah. But
stay tuned, dear audience.
It's hard to find something that will punish you and delight me.
Right.
But even I'm starting to worry that it won't delight me as much as I hope it will.
Oh, that's great.
But I know it's going to annoy you, and that's almost worth it.
You know?
You've let something slip, and you regret it for a long time. A long time. In the words of Obi-Wan Kenobi, a long time.
As always, this movie's a juggernaut. I think all these later movies have a budget around of $150 million. They all make around $300, but always in the neighborhood of close to $1 billion worldwide. You'll like this. They were originally planning to do one movie. It turned out to be a 500-page script, and the movie was going to be 5.5 hours long. So that's why we got the split.
I mean, that's no excuse. You don't need to keep it at 500 pages. You can cut stuff. I could give you a list of things you could cut right now.
I'm sure you've got an extensive list. Well, let me ask you this though. Do filmmakers need to feel beholden to the book audience at all? Because that's, in addition to completely and totally being a money grab, making 2 movies instead of 1, you prolong the series a bit and you get to make another $1 billion.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think there's anything to the argument that the book audience wants to see as much of the book as they can, and dividing this movie into 2 movies gives that to them? Or fuck them?
Well, I would say fuck them, but clearly that's the only logic behind it. Apart from the eking out the last dregs of the bubble, of the Harry Potter bubble. But yeah, that's got to be really the only argument. And it's interesting to me that I think it's kind of the similar situation to how prequels have gone out of fashion. I think multi-part films are also going out of fashion. Of fashion. I think if we didn't do it for Rise of Skywalker, we never will. Because
that's a little different though, because that's being written directly for the screen, right? You're not dealing with a 700-page, 800-page book.
Yeah, but apparently it was written directly for the screen. Yes. I mean, it's interesting. I'm trying to think, because I want to be fair. My basic thesis is multi-part films especially within a series that is also a sequel franchise, is just a bad idea. But
so tell me why, though.
Okay, well,
what's your argument for it can't work? Because you said that several times. So
I don't think
why is it not possible to work?
I think it can work under certain circumstances. I think,
just out of curiosity, does Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2 work or not?
All right,
work?
You found my exception that proves the rule.
Okay, I thought so.
But that was approached, I understand, as, a filmmaker realizing that he was making two completely different movies that just happened to have the same characters in them.
Well, I remember it being, or hearing at the time, that it was just too much story. Not necessarily two different stories, but it was he wasn't willing to cut what he wanted, and it was going to be like this, it was going to be a 5-hour-long movie, and he said, I don't want to do that. Let's make Volume 1 and Volume 2.
But Tarantino's a good enough filmmaker to be able to crap two distinct movies.
Yeah, right.
Because that.
Just out of curiosity, which one do you like more?
I go back and forth, actually.
Okay.
But the first one takes some beating, but only because I was so blown away by it as a piece of spectacle.
Yeah, right.
In a way I wasn't with the second movie, but I was also quietly impressed by how the second movie tonally was completely different.
And I really like that about that movie, and I like that movie more. And that's why I equate it to these two movies, because the second one slowed down and developed the characters even more, and
But you like this one more, right?
Yeah, right. That's what I always equate it to the Deathly Hallows, because that's what you were apoplectic when you found out that I was listing this movie as high as I was.
Yeah.
This is second to last for you, right?
No, this is very last for me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I like this one more than part 2. I like that this movie slows down. I like that that we don't have to worry about stuffing it to the gills with the British national treasures, because I also don't hate these three actors, so I like watching their. Yeah,
that saves me from saying that.
Right. So I know that that's your living nightmare.
Yes.
But I think all three of them had become quite good actors, and so the thing that always surprised me on a first viewing of this movie was that this first part takes essentially 3/4 of the book. So leaving the theater, I thought, what the fuck are they going to do in that last movie? And it's just a big, drawn out battle scene. With lots of good stuff in that I like. I declare all these movies good.
None of this convinces me that splitting this story into two movies is a good idea. You're already telling me there's more story in one than that. There's like half a film left over.
Right.
I don't. So you're
already telling me that digging myself a shallow grave by admitting that to you, but I was giving you ammunition to fire into my face.
I mean, it's not just with the multi-part movie, I think it signals that there's a problem. You don't know how to adapt this story and make it coherent. And it just ends up being deeply unsatisfying as an individual movie.
Not for me.
Not for you. But there's a number of things.
And I also don't think for the general Harry Potter going audience.
Well, there's a number of factors that for me make this a deeply unsatisfying movie. I mean, the multi-part.
Okay, go.
The multi-part aspect of it is definitely plays a big role in that. I mean, we go from Voldemort winning to winning in 2.5 hours. So there's no real arc in this movie that I can see. Anyway.
Wait, say that again?
He goes from winning to winning,
wins?
and it takes 2.5 hours.
How does he win? He dies at the end. What are you talking
about? No,
in
the mid. So this movie ends with him winning, and he's winning at the beginning of the movie.
Oh, you mean because he gets the wand? Yeah, but that's not true because there's things he doesn't know or understand about magic.
I'm talking about this as an individual movie.
I get that.
Aside from that,
But if you'd read the books, you know that Harry's making a choice. He's letting him get that wand.
I'm not. I'm judging this as a moviegoer, not as a.
That's true.
As a sequel lover, and the compulsion that this movie feels to be a kind of greatest hits compilation of the franchise, that compromises its ability to stand out as an individual movie too. And also,
how do you mean greatest hits?
Well, callbacks to the best moments of the franchise, like doing a version of the bus chase from Prisoner of Azkaban, multiple callbacks to the Chamber of Secrets, which it turns out is the most important movie in the franchise all of a sudden. The invisibility spell. This kind of.
Not a spell, they wear a cloak.
Okay, the invisibility cloak.
Cloak. Oh, you're upsetting me.
Well, there's so many of those things, and so it just
isn't that all part of the world building though? I mean, you introduce an invisibility that he has an invisibility cloak. It's essential to how Harry has spent his entire wizarding education.
I'm not
by being able to use that cloak. Are you saying that they just shouldn't be using it?
No, I'm talking
once
about
it's introduced.
I'm talking about why this is the kind of least satisfying. I'm just talking about why this is the least satisfying as a standalone movie. And the kind of it is. I think it's very deliberate in this movie that we have to nod to everything that came before at least once, like. Even tonally, it's like those little fart bomb things. It's like, remember when Chris Columbus directed this and it was all fun and we were kids? There's so many of those things scattered throughout it. I'm sort of like, well, that really compromises this movie having any kind of identity of its own. Beyond that, the introduction of Grindelwald seems to me to be backdoor prequel time. So you get the feeling
I don't know that was. I don't know if you could. I mean, it's hard to say because I don't know what was in J.K. Rowling's mind or how
bigotry. Anyway, but beyond that,
my point was. I don't know if she had conceived of starting something with Fantastic Beasts by this time or not.
I definitely got the sense of that.
So, yeah, but you have the benefit of hindsight.
Yes.
You didn't see this movie in 2010.
I don't know. I think you can always. I have a good radar for backdoor prequels. Or backdoor franchise extension, and when you get that you like, even for this incomplete idea of who Grindelwald is and what he means, I'm like,
I'll tell you when I got that was in which Star Wars sequel was it? Not the Rise of Skywalker, the Last Jedi, when Luke goes into the Millennium Falcon and sees whatever that was, the iron dice.
The furry dice, yeah.
Yeah, I was like,
the hitherto...
like, we're clearly seeing something that's going to be in Solo. Eat a dick.
Well, this
You're
movie...
introducing this dice for the first time in 8, movies.
Speaking of that impasse of the hitherto unmentioned family member, Dumbledore's brother.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me how this is different from Legends of Curly's Gold. He looks exactly the same as Dumbledore, sounds exactly the same, and he's And he's never been mentioned before. And he even says at one point, did he ever mention me? I'm like, no, because this is a sequel, and this is an imbas.
Yes, it's an imbas. I'll give you that.
And then Batilda Bagshot, who's someone that everyone knows, but I've not heard of before in this franchise. It's like, what's the point of doing an ongoing series if you still do all the kind of, like, spontaneous sequel shit of retconning everything?
I would argue that it's not necessarily a retcon, because she is mentioned before. She is the writer of A History of Magic.
When is she mentioned?
Actually, now that I think about it, probably in the first movie.
Okay. Well, that's a long time, but we've not heard about Dumbledore's brother before, right?
No.
And just like we hadn't heard of Hagrid's brother. The motion picture James Corden in the last one.
Right. No. I
just think it.
Yeah, I mean, they're they come up in the books like they do in the movies. Like you learn of them at that time.
And it just makes me feel like what's the point in like building a mythology if you're still gonna like try and do the thing that sequels do, which is to convince the audience that these people have been important all along, even though we've never seen or heard of them before.
Is it that? Is it always that we're... I mean, I guess you're right in the sense that they are important because they can't get back into the castle without Aberforth, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's just I wasn't even making that point. It just came up. Those are my three issue. Well, no, I think both these movies are a big failure. I'm not, I think definitely the nadir of the franchise for me. What makes this slightly worse? Firstly, that you can see all those problems more than you can in the next movie, but also just as you've already outlined, what I always hang on to in these films is that I get to spend time with the best supporting cast in cinema, and this movie deprives me of that time.
I get that from your point of view, that I understand why this movie would bother you, because you don't get to hold on to the one thing you feel connected to.
Yeah. So,
but for me, as a Harry Potter lover and a lover of the books and a lover of the movies, I love that we get to slow down and not have to feel like we're rushing or jam-packing so that the seams are bursting. Some of these other movies, 5 and 4 most especially, feel like they're bursting at the seams, trying to put in as much as they can, which is remarkable for the 5th one, too, which is why I think I put that movie towards the end, is because that movie feels like it's bursting at the seams, which makes sense because it's one of the longest books, but it is, I think, the shortest movie or second shortest movie.
Yeah.
So,
but as an outside observer, I would say cut all the mood building and the character development that takes up too much time, even for what it is, and make one movie.
Cut character development?
No, cut the amount of time you take with this and how much you have paused the pace of the movie to do it. But, I mean, you're right. That's not what the majority of people who are buying the tickets to this movie are interested in.
Right.
They want as much Harry Potter possible, but I don't know. I mean, well, we'll see when you give the numbers to the second movie, but I think even in that position, I would be irritated that you couldn't make a coherent movie out of the material that you've got.
Going back to your argument about separating it?
Well, I don't know. It depends. Are Harry Potter fans that kind of militant and brainwashed. It's just like, we want more Potter at the expense of quality filmmaking. I don't know. I mean, some fans are, some fans are like, it's better that this is in the world than not.
I just disagree. I found the way, despite the fact that I was surprised how far in the book they got in this first movie, it seemed like, to me, when he raises the wand and lightning strikes and,
I like to think I know something about beer, but nowadays even I get overwhelmed when confronted by the exhaustive selection of craft beers they have at bars, breweries, and even grocery stores. Back in the day you had one, maybe two craft beers to choose from, and if you were confused, you ordered a Guinness. But in beerstinations like San Diego, the craft beer options lately are in double, sometimes even triple digits. So what's a beer drinker to do? You need what I need, the Vegas Beer Guys. Your beer of choice should be a perfect blend of malt and hops. And so a live show about beer needs that same balance. And the Vegas Beer Guys matches beer expert Dan Aker with self-proclaimed beer novice Stephen J. Weiss. The results are eminently drinkable. They're on Facebook, they're on Instagram. They'll try new beers, they'll tell you about beer. Think of them as your beer Sherpas guiding you up a foamy-headed mountain to reach the peak of your pint. God, I need a beer.
And we're back. Tom and I are here, of course, discussing the 2010 film, The Deathly Hallows, Part 1. Is there anything in this movie you do like? I mean, as this movie starts,
yes,
Harry Potter is at home.
As long as you have absolutely no follow-up questions.
That's my line. I love that line.
I believe it's from The Simpsons.
Yeah. So long as there are absolutely no follow-up questions, yes.
Now go on.
What'd you think of, because Harry's at home, I did miss one thing from the book. The Dursleys all have to leave, and you get that in the movie. But in the book, there is a moment where Dudley Dursley says, "What about him? Why is he not coming with us?" And Harry realizes for the first time that Dudley, at the very least, has managed to care whether or not he's living or dead. But at any rate, then you have this big chase. So what'd you think?
It doesn't Richard Griffith give a look which is kind of basically that emotion? Like, it's like, I acknowledge that something's missing, but I don't quite know what it is.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, because I latch onto that second part more than
Well, it's sort of like because essentially they're erasing themselves from history, is what I got from that via magic, right?
I don't know. Hard to say. Because they definitely just have to leave town and be somewhere where nobody can find them.
Right, but it's sort of like, it's like they're making them forget that he's there, is the sense I got. But regardless...
Oh, like a memory charm? I think you're thinking of Hermione's parents.
Okay, so it doesn't apply to Uncle Vernon.
No, yeah.
I thought that's what they were suggesting with Uncle Vernon. Like, we see the point at which he forgets that Harry exists, but he remembers that there's something missing. But,
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, I thought that, and then I was like, it's interesting how they use magic to do like retconning. But anyway, it really just confirmed my my analogy that Voldemort's become Blofeld. Because there's literally a scene where all his followers are organized like Spectre. around a table, and he's walking around Blofeld-like, and kills one of them.
He kills he kills a woman.
I mean, that scene happens in Thunderball.
Right. But what I like about that moment is, well, let me ask you, because you've already stated that you never believed that Snape was bad or evil.
Yeah.
So in order for him to keep his disguise on while he's sitting at that table, he has to watch somebody die. And I think that's a really great moment.
Yeah. But yeah, for me, I'm just like, oh, this is going to be hard for him to deal with when he finally reveals that it's all a game. And also makes Dumbledore look more villainous than making him do it.
Mm-hmm.
Which is how it turns out, but still not. I guess that's a pretty good. That's as close as you get as he gets to convincing me that he is really going through with this and he is really defected. But,
hey, there you go.
But I still didn't buy it.
Well, I think the look on his face is perfect
because that's exactly what
playing
you would do.
Right. He's looking at her as though he's impassive, but you can see, at least I think you can see his heart breaking behind that veil.
Yeah. True.
In a way that's really engaging. Like I miss Alan Rickman.
Me too. And I think there's a kind of last-minute introduction of a few more famous British faces, at least in the first part of the movie. Well, the beginning and the end of the movie is like it's like a British National Treasure sandwich. We get Bill Nye coming in, and then there's some people who are not celebrities but mean a lot in the world of kind of fantasy and gothic. The person who famous for playing a British TV horror host called Dr. Terror, but also famous for being the man behind the CGI Governor Tarkin in Rogue One.
Oh, okay.
Fake Peter Cushing. And Graham Duff, who who wrote a parody, weirdly enough, of Dr. Terror's House of Horror called Dr. Terrible's House of Horrible. Starring Steve Coogan, which was a horror anthology ripoff. So there are some kind of nods to like British fantasy.
And also John Hurt, who, because you haven't seen the original movie, you're seeing for the first time, right?
Oh, he's from the original movie?
Yeah.
Because to me, well, that's exactly, having not seen that, it looked like he walked straight off the set of Crystal Skull, which was a year before,
right.
Without even changing his clothes or hair. Or acting.
No, yeah, sells Harry as one.
We'll talk about that in the next movie, but let me just say I was deeply frustrated at the last-minute introduction of John Hurt with zero screen time or dialogue of note. I mean, the next movie obviously picks that up. You're not going to introduce John Hurt and then not pick it up. But, again, as an individual movie... It's a big tease to get John Hurt and Warwick Davis, and then nothing comes of that. But anyway, also a little bit with Bill Nye as well. I feel like
he dies quickly, right?
He's set up in a way that seems he's going to be more important, and obviously he's a big. Certainly by this time, he's a big name in British acting, and I think a favorite of of a lot of people.
But then Shacklebott's Otter comes and just announces the minister is dead.
Yeah. So, again, that's frustrating that the Potter Repertory Theatre is largely absent from this movie. But you mentioned the chase, and I felt that this was like, this was trying to introduce the sense of this as a finale. As the finale two-parter. So all possible variations of flying machines and creatures, the biggest spectacle we've seen as yet. The summative piece of spectacle. And within that, you have the greatest hits moments, the reprise of the buzz chase. This very much essentially trying to access audience memories of iconic and I would say better parts of this franchise. But certainly the intent is there to kind of wow people and kind of make them nostalgic for things that we've seen before.
I don't know. I don't know that those are. I still not convinced that those are all conscious choices, unless it's a conscious choice by J.K. Rowling in the first place for putting them in the books.
Yeah. Well, that's what I got from it as an outsider.
Did you even care that Hedwig died? You don't know who Hedwig is.
Maybe if you remind me who Hedwig is.
The owl. Harry's owl.
Mike, we're not talking about Hedwig and the Angry Itch.
No.
His owl dies? Okay. Well, yes, I respond emotionally to things.
Okay, good. I just imagine poor Hedwig getting hit by an Avada Kedavra curse, and you say, "Good, now get the rest of them and roll credits."
And when was the last time we heard anything about that owl? Was it recently?
Oh yeah, the owl's always there.
Okay, because I'm thinking forward to the Dobby, when Dobby's reintroduced.
Right.
Everyone's like, he's such an, he's so important. I'm like, we have not seen him since the second film. Let's not forget.
Well, and
it's the Dedrick effect.
That's one of the things.
Now that he dies, he's suddenly a big deal.
Right. There is a lot left out about house elves in movies 4 and 5, because Dobby is in the books more. Dobby actually starts working in the kitchens at Hogwarts, and the kids go down to the kitchens and visit him. And there's another elf that's introduced in Goblet of Fire whose name is Winky, who was actually supposed to be sitting in this.
I am great. I am grateful that we didn't have.
Yeah,
that.
I knew you were going to say that. and even
that was a good editorial choice.
Even as I started talking, I realized I could be talking about the storylines from these books for the next 10 minutes until Tom sets himself on fire. So. But suffice to say that there's a lot of other elf stuff in the books that don't make it in the movies for time constraints, and so that's the reason why it feels out of place bringing them back all of a sudden. That speaks to your because in a movie you do have to cut stuff.
I find it offensive that in order to understand what's going on, it's like dog whistling to people who've read the books.
How could you avoid that, though?
By putting, just give me the information. This goes back to Chamber of Secrets. It's like, give me the information I need when I need it.
Well,
don't tell me to go off and read something else or watch something else. Give it to me now.
Can't I argue that that's what they're doing? That you're not seeing Dobby until you need to, when he has to save everybody, and you're pissed about it?
No, I'm pissed about this this missing subplot that would put all of this into context.
So you're saying you'd like the movies to be longer?
This is what irritates me about, modern Star Wars. Well, a lot of things irritate me about modern Star Wars, but chiefly among them is, they're constantly telling you, go off and read that comic. Go and find this EU novel. No! Tell me what I need to know in the frame of the thing that you are giving me.
Oh, that's interesting, because I would probably say the same thing about Star Wars.
It's like, why can't we have the exposition dump at the beginning of A New Hope? What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that man who comes in and goes, exposition, exposition, exposition? It's like, I need that. I've not got time to watch all this stuff and read all this stuff, or interest. But I want to enjoy this movie as a movie. Anyway, It's my rant over. Carry on. But that's not on this film. That is just like, that's modern franchise filmmaking and the things that, and, you know, multi-level marketing within them.
I mean, from the standpoint of the creators of these movies, from studios down to producers to directors and so on, is it too, I guess my question to you is it too much to expect them to do that for the very few people they're going to assume are seeing the movies but haven't read the books? Don't you think they're working under the assumption that most people have been reading the books?
Yeah. That's the thing, you know, that they're not thinking about the lay viewer.
Right.
You know, that at some point studios realize that fandom, you know, you can make money off fans. Right. And so we cater to them and their insular view of, because fandom involves so many different texts within the same property.
Sure.
It's like, well, let's play their game of, you find a bit of the mythology here, you find a bit of mythology there, but they have to pay for it all. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, then modern franchise filmmaking is not thinking, you know, like the producers of Superman 2. It's like, we gotta remind everyone what happened in the first movie. No one will be able to understand this otherwise.
Right.
But I'm still thinking like that because, you know, I think that's a kind of more honest. We've talked about how clunky it is and how gratuitous it can get, but it's still like, it's a lost art form, but it's been deliberately lost, I think, because, yeah,
that's interesting. Yeah.
It profits everyone involved in that cycle of fandom and profiting off fandom to be as secretive about what's going on as possible so that you're forced to buy. I didn't mean this to be a Marxist tract, but it kind of is. But you know, we've got gone full circle because it's like the first thing that really irritated me coming in the second movie, which, you know, to your point is ludicrous, a ludicrous position to be viewing this franchise from. But you know, it's I don't think it's an accident that movies are not filling people in for free within one piece of art.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, it's like the diminished importance of the kind of Saturday afternoon
serial.
I just stumbled, you know, what Tarantino talks about, you know, the guy who's in a mall, you know, he's a hot dog on a stick and he wants to see a movie, you know, like Max Cherry and Jackie Brown. I don't know why we're talking so much about Tarantino, but you know, it's like, what are you going to see? It's like something that looks good and starts soon, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And that's a very old idea of a moviegoer because, you know, it's this idea that you'll just watch anything at the movies.
I'll at least acknowledge that most people are not like me because I still have the Max Cherry attitude.
Me too. And I think the assumed knowledge is too much at times.
Yeah.
But it's no accident. It all works for within that cycle. I get that. I don't think it's it's an to me it's a creative failure, but it's by no means an economic failure. Maybe one day it will be and we'll go back to pleasing as many people as possible, but right now it doesn't work like that.
And okay, moving on from our existential talk about the nature of moviegoing.
Yes.
I think you mentioned...
What do you think of the elves?
I was going to say, well, because, you know, we talked about...
The elves look good.
We have this big fight, and then we're at Ron's house, and we're at the wedding, and shit goes down and the kids have to get away. And they go back to Grimmauld Place, so we see...
Hey, we went to Piccadilly Circus first.
We did.
Because it's a David Yates film.
We did. We have a little battle in the coffee shop. And then we get back to Grimmauld Place. We see Creature again.
That's right, yeah.
But I think I remember you in our introductory episode talking at length about I think you hated the break-in of the Ministry because... they take Polyjuice Potion and turn it into the adult actors who you wish they stayed as because they're better?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That's what I liked about it. 100%, yeah. Have I already mentioned that?
I think so. But that set piece is really good, isn't it?
Yeah. I was going back over my notes, I realized that's the section of the movie I really liked, and not just, facetiously because...
Not just to bother me?
Because they get to be played by different actors for a while. I generally like everything to do with, going into the Ministry. I think it's a great set piece, and they definitely they definitely drain everything they can from that brilliant idea of the Ministry of Magic. I think in these movies. And it was really not. Is this where you see that, or is it in the next movie where you see the goblins? It's the next movie. Never mind.
No, you see. Oh yeah, okay. You mean when they break in?
Also, this is the part of the movie where we're going back to that Order of the Phoenix, talking about something that's relevant to modern Britain, and there's a line in here that really stood out to me as someone who lived in Britain at the time and the kinds of media discourse that was going around. At one point, Dark Mark says, you have nothing to fear if you have nothing to hide. And that was pretty much the government's slogan behind the rollout of ID cards.
Sure.
Which most people in Britain, which most people at the time thought was a huge invasion of privacy and a beginning of a surveillance age, and it absolutely
was. Yeah, right.
So we're definitely, every time we go to that Ministry of Magic, we start to see things that are kind of politically quite interesting coming up. So yeah, there you go.
Plus, we get Umbridge back.
Yeah. Again, that tag team of British National Treasure.
Does the coronavirus have you feeling oogie? Have you been sitting on your couch for weeks? Nay, have you been sitting on there for months? Well, it's time for you to get back in shape. Check out 2AT Fitness. You can find them on Instagram. You can find them on Facebook. 2AT Fitness was started by Tina Bernard. She is ready and raring to go to help you get back into the shape you want to get into. They've got all kinds of classes. They've got outdoor in-person classes. They've got online classes if that's what you prefer. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to get back in shape. You're going to find a variety of exercises. You're going to have strength training, cardio, weightlifting, even fun 5-minute burnouts that will push you to your limits. So get off the couch, get into shape. Go ahead and check out 2AT Fitness. Tina Bernard has got you for all your needs. I know her personally. She's fantastic. You're not going to meet a better person to help you become the new you. Check it out. And we're back. Tom and I are here discussing Deathly Hallows Part 1. Still going strong, Tom.
If you say so.
At least for me. Now, I asked you earlier...
Can we talk about
Tarantino?
Anything
in this movie... if there's anything in this movie that you like, and you said there are things you like, and we discussed some of them. Yeah. What else? Is there anything else on your list that you appreciate?
We talked about the body kidnapping. I like that device, and I like the fact that it allows the characters to be played by different actors. The elves look, they're obviously showcasing the fact that the elf effects have improved drastically.
Right.
By having both creature and elf. Creature and, not elf, I'm thinking of Will Ferrell. Creature and Dobby I'm just here to annoy you, Potter fans. Creature
Mission
and Will
accomplished.
Ferrell, in the same shot, and it's really, it's a nice, it's a very upfront, demonstration to the audience of like, here's how far we've come with special effects. Remember what Dobby looked like in the previous movie, and now there's two of them. So I like that.
Am I right in saying that your nightmare starts when the kids can't get back to Grimmauld Place?
Pretty much.
And have to start camping?
And, I've already said this, I think, before. Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, Oh Children, features in probably my least favorite scene in this movie, but that's my favorite band of all time, and that song is from my favorite album of all time.
Oh, wow.
So I must really hate these scenes for that to come out neutral for me.
Is that the scene where Hermione and Harry are dancing?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Now
what about, like, Ron leaving? The dismay and the heartbreak of that? Does any of that play for you?
I get, I like the dynamics. And I like the sort of, the chinks in Potter's armor, Ron questioning his faith, how that kind of signals.
We thought you knew what you were doing.
Yeah, how that signals how they're changing, how they're growing up. I think that's fine. It's about for me, it's about, how weak the execution is of that by the actors who are doing it, but also the amount of time we're spending on it, especially when, in order to have this, we have to make a second movie. It seems to me. If you were tighter about this, you could avoid the second movie. So I can't think outside those two things.
It's so funny how differing we are, because I just eat all of that with a spoon.
And I'm sure...
Because I think as a movie-going audience member in general, like the Kill Bill argument, like I really love it when that second movie slows down and we get to spend, it's not so frenetic. And so much of these movies, because they're based on books and a lot of these books are big, they feel frenetic in that way. And I love slowing down and just being able to sit with these characters for a while.
Yeah, but that's not tied up with a failure of adaptation. In the same way this is, for me.
Okay.
And a failure of execution.
How dare
you. Because that, perfectly executed and very clearly defined as two very different movies that it's impossible, whether or not this was the intention of Tarantino.
Yeah, but I would make that argument for these two movies. These are two very different movies. It's the reverse of Kill Bill. We go slow first and then it's frenetic next.
Yeah, absolutely. And, well, it's slow upon slow, though, because this middle part of the movie is very slow. And then the beginning of the next movie is incredibly slow. But...
What are you talking about? The beginning of the next movie is breaking into Gringotts.
But there's like an hour of people going in and out of rooms. And you know what? I really like that. So I'm not questioning that, but don't you tell me that is frenetic.
What rooms are you talking about exactly?
We'll get there.
You're right.
Got a whole podcast to talk about it. I wanted to ask you a question.
Go.
16th birthday comment. Now, I think I know what that's about. What does that mean to you?
Wait, say it again?
When they sort of casually mention, oh, I think we're 16 now. Or I think
17, you mean?
No, it's 16 birthday, right?
No. For starters...
At some point, I've got it down here, someone makes a comment, it's like, oh, it's like, we've been doing this for so long, my 16th birthday's passed.
Oh, I don't think so. There's the moment where because when they leave the wedding and go to the coffee shop,
Hmm.
What they don't know at that time is that the name Voldemort is jinxed. So if you say it, it's like a trace and you can be found. And that's why the Death Eaters show up there. But at that time, Harry says, do you think I still have the trace on me, meaning the underage trace? And they say no. Like, once you hit 17, it's gone. It can't be that.
One of them has turned 16 then. Another one of them has turned 16. Hermione, maybe?
No, they're both already 17 because they both could already apparate.
Did you know that there was a British tabloid newspaper called The Sun? I don't know why. I was going to...
I do know that.
No. I've got more. I was going to keep it anonymous. I'm like, why? What I'm talking about is so objectionable. They deserve to be named. They who shall be named. Had a countdown to Emma Watson turning 16.
Oh, man. Is that the legal age or something in Britain?
Yeah, exactly. Like, as
gross.
if she turns 16, suddenly you can, sexually objectify her, is the implication.
Ugh.
I mean, that's awful, but I was wondering if this movie was kind of playing into that by, not playing into that directly, but part of the same problem where it reminds us of their ages to give us permission to ogle them, or not just her, but all three as sex objects.
I don't remember this 16 thing you're talking about.
Okay.
There's 17 for the trace, and the only other thing I remember in this movie where they say something akin to what you're saying is when they go to the village after Ron has left, and Hermione and Harry are there, and she says, "Harry, I think it's Christmas."
Right. I've got that, but that's a different part of the movie. Anyway.
I think you maybe started watching something on your phone.
No.
And started
But I think at some point they mentioned the age of the characters, so it's easier for us to see them as adults and to objectify them, is the point I'm making. But I like the
here
puppets.
in America, you're not legally an adult until you're 18.
Right.
So it wouldn't need you back the fuck off anyway. Not that you should.
Back the fuck
18
off anyway.
comes and goes, but
back the fuck off anyway because we first encountered them as children, and that's what matters.
Right.
That is absolutely what matters, and that is what I find deeply uncomfortable about them becoming sex symbols in the course of these movies. The men too. But anyway, I like the puppets. Shadow puppets are great.
You mean
the one of them looks like General Grievous from Revenge of the Sith. But
so you mean the animation scene?
Yeah, but I was like,
so I was going to ask you about the animation scene because I love it.
Yeah, it's a nice addition to the movie and a nice break from what I don't.
Oh God!
What I don't like, I can't believe Emma Watson is worse in having just stood up for her. That she's worse in voiceover than she is in person.
Shut up. God.
She is the absolute least person I want to hear giving a voiceover.
How dare you? Have you seen Perks of Being a Wallflower?
No.
Well, watch that movie at least.
I've seen Little Women, which is a most recent effort, and she has not learned how to act yet. On the basis of that movie. And she's against some really good actors, and it really shows.
Emma, I'm on your side. I love you. I think you're great.
Because she is, of course, listening. Well, if she was, she ain't listening now.
She left long ago. Thanks
and then
a lot, Dick.
Grindelwald turns up, and he's the Nazi from The Last Crusade. Played by what's the name of I don't know what the name of the actor is. The guy who's like a Nazi officer in The Last Crusade.
But wait, which...
Grindelwald.
But I mean, are you talking about the American that's working with?
No, not Alison Doody. A male, the older.
No. I mean, I forget the actor's name. But the guy who brings the job to Indiana.
No, not he. Although he
whose
is in,
face not melts.
although he
but...
is in Chamber of Secrets too.
Yeah, right.
No, it's no. He's the real Nazi. He's the guy who's actually a Nazi.
Oh, you're right. Okay, I've got it now. You're right.
I'm
Absolutely.
trying to find his name.
The pale blue eyes.
Yes.
Right.
Michael Byrne is his name.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been able to pick out the name.
No, me neither. But he's in a lot of things, specifically Last Crusade. Germany has oh no, that is Julian.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of a line he says, but I don't think there's a remarkable one. But anyway.
Well, he's the guy who puts the little cane on.
Yes.
On his newspaper on.
That's what I think of. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just reminded me that there's lots of great actors in these movies in completely thankless roles. And this movie...
That's built up. All of that's built up a bit more in the books because you have a real...
If you this is our drinking game, isn't it? Every time you say, a lot of this is in the books.
They really build up this idea of, A, that Voldemort is not in the country. He's somewhere else, Albania or something.
He's in Albania.
And
like
this
in the
idea
Swiss Alps,
of,
like Blofeld
of Horcruxes
or Service.
Well, the idea of Horcruxes versus Hallows. Harry has to be making
MacGuffins.
That choice. Yeah.
They're all MacGuffins.
Well, what about...
I love that at one point someone says, it's the sign of the Deathly Hallows, of course. I don't remember hearing about these Deathly Hallows. Maybe I missed it. But it seems like the first time we've talked about this.
No, well, I think
don't need
that,
the of course.
That's more of an indication of the character who... Because in his kind of addled mind, he says, of course, it's the Deathly Hallows, when a lot of people don't actually know about the Deathly Hallows.
I certainly didn't.
Well, of course
not. And
not.
I still don't really know. Why is bee-sting-faced Harry Potter such a good disguise? He looks exactly the same, except that he's been stung by bees.
I think it's because you can't be sure.
Okay.
No?
It barely alters any of his features. At least the way it's represented here.
But
maybe they describe it differently in the book. But I'm just like, well, it's him. I mean, he's been stung by bees, but that's Harry Potter.
He doesn't have his glasses on. There's like a there's like a fold where his scar would be, where the lightning bolt is.
I think that was an unusual choice, given what we've seen you can do with magic in these movies. That's the best disguise they can come up with.
Well, they couldn't quickly do, Polyjuice potion or anything. Hermione was time was of the essence, Tom.
Yeah, because earlier in the movie, their disguise was making everyone Harry, like being John Malkovich, basically. They make everyone Harry Potter for a bit, which is a very strange moment. That's in this movie, right? They make everyone Harry Potter. Briefly.
Yeah, that's at the beginning.
And then they use, and this adds to my greatest hits thesis, because they use a piece of Harry Potter trivia to figure out who's the imposter. So it's like a trivia book at the end of the series. Anyway.
Well, and so we're at the end. Like, at the end of this movie, it essentially ends at Malfoy Manor. So you talked about how these snatchers catch Harry in his disheveled face that you don't think disguises him.
Mm-hmm.
But to the credit of the actor in that scene, I think you're right in the sense that he looks right at him and thinks to himself, I think he's 90% sure it's Potter, and that's why he takes him to Malfoy Manor.
Mm-hmm. That doesn't really add to your argument that it's a good disguise, but go on.
I'm not saying I wasn't advocating that this was a great disguise. I was saying you can't look at him. You seem to be arguing that one look and you go, Potter.
Yeah.
And I'm saying you would have enough doubt because in their minds, if they take him there and they're wrong, Voldemort will kill them. So you got to be 100% sure.
Okay. I'll buy
Thoughts on this last scene, though?
Well, I'm not happy with how these movies, or it sounds like these books, treat house elves. But
obviously,
like his giving him his freedom and then killing Dobby, it's like, well, you've undone that sense of joy about fleeing a slave by immediately killing them.
Immediately, we're like 6 movies later.
Yeah. Well, yeah, not immediately. But just to have him die in the last few minutes of the movie.
But also, it's by Dobby's choice. He chooses to help save Harry because he loves Harry, because Harry Potter is his friend. Acknowledge the sacrifice, Tom.
Yeah, I'm not. Again, this seems to be.
Although I suppose you are acknowledging the goodness of the elf and the terrible of the people.
Yeah. And it's like, yeah, but it's that awful sacrificial lamb trope of they become important because they sacrifice their lives, not because you've given them any reason for them to be important in the story. I guess that's what.
Okay.
Which is, again, like, I think J.K. Rowling is, like, she filters in a lot of, from what I can tell from these movies, and I haven't read these books, but story-wise, she's kind of like, she's jumping on a lot of old-fashioned storytelling, like slave narratives and fantasy, Lord of the Rings style fantasy, Tom Brown's School Days, books about British children and going to private schools, boarding schools, that kind of thing. And this just seems like it's like this could be straight out of Uncle Tom's Cabin. For me. I mean, I guess it's absolutely no surprise this movie ends on a cliffhanger. Right. I mean,
of course, yeah. But you have to know that going in, right?
Yeah. And
the first part of a 2-parter, of course it's going to end like that.
I was like, again, making me nostalgic for Back to the Future Part 2. It's like 7 minutes of credits and they can't make time for a teaser, a trailer, or even an intertitle talking about the next movie. Didn't have any footage they could have thrown in there.
You want the end of the credits and the
I mean, they go a little too far and show the entire movie in that.
Of course, right.
I would want that just so I didn't have to watch the next one. But
how dare you?
I mean, it's that same sort of feeling. I think it's that same sort of feeling. Like, you're right, going into it, but it still leaves you feeling deeply unsatisfied, especially because.
Speak for yourself.
But it's not like it's like okay, so Voldemort's winning. Now he's found another way to win. Like, you think about the equivalent in Kill Bill, which is apparently
he hasn't found another way to win. He's wrong.
We don't know, but it just looks like, okay, good, yeah, like he's done well.
And I even if you haven't read the books, I dispute the fact that he's won or is winning.
Okay,
seems
like the
obviously. If you haven't read the books, you know that you would. Don't you assume that yeah, he has an advantage, but
big advantage.
Yeah, so and
Harry
Harry
had
Potter
a big advantage. So
don't you look forward to seeing how Harry Potter is going to overcome that obstacle?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, as an educated, follower of fiction, you would obviously think like, how is Harry going to deal with this?
Exactly. It's like every good
But think
horror
about the equivalent
movie
in Kill Bill.
or, how are they going to get out of this?
But then, this... To me, that's doubling down on something that we're already doing, that's already happening in the story. When, Kill Bill, I'm just going to give it up as a spoiler. If you haven't seen it, it's your own fault. But, your revelation about there being a child who's alive that we thought was dead. And it's,
right.
very soapy, but...
I think works completely, though.
You do need something that melodramatic. This is just so Voldemort's got a bigger advantage now than he had at the beginning of the movie, which seemed like he had a pretty big advantage. I don't know. It didn't really do much.
No, I think it lends itself towards the doom of thinking, my God, what are they going to do now?
And really, just to get Dumbledore back in the get Michael Gambon back in the picture. I hope he didn't have to do more than a day in that casket.
Right.
with Ralph Fiennes leaning over him. Ralph Fiennes with no nose
hung up on
breathing
wires
in his face.
All right, well,
I also can't believe at this point Voldemort is still barely in the movie. We've been waiting so long, and it's Ralph Fiennes. I mean, when he comes out in the next movie, he comes out.
Oh, he does.
He is chewing
fully
that
present and accounted for.
He is chewing that, chewing the bricks of that building. But
in the best way possible, I would argue.
Me too.
All right, good.
That's why I like that one better than I like this one.
Get the fuck out of here. Anything else?
I don't think so. I just for our purposes, not really the movies. I've noticed a lot of the movies we've been looking at recently. People looking at gravestones. I wonder if this is another impasse. It must be a sequel because
you think
people looking. Because normally I think about it as people looking at photographs of people who are not in the movie. Often those people are dead, as in Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull with that desk of death, that kind of soft focus, Denham Elliott and Sean Connery, which brings those ideas together. But I wonder if there is a walking through a graveyard with the names of people who've died in previous movies. Whether that's the thing we need to start looking out for.
Yeah, we need some more sample cases before we can... Although we gave short shrift to that scene. I really love that scene when they go back to the village and they visit the gravesite and Bathilda Bagshot turns out to be the snake. It's all spooky and good.
There's a good bit of body horror in there.
Yeah.
And again, I thought there was a
coming out of her neck.
It's... Not so much in this movie. In the next movie, I get just as kind of preview, I get a sense of we've got to show everything at least one more time. And this felt like the last stand of body horror for me. It was we got to have this transformation body horror moment. Again, thinking back to Prisoner of Azkaban and the transformations in that. That was cool.
Of the wolf.
The wolf, the wolf and the... That's it, right? So just werewolves in that.
Well, you were complaining in previous episodes about snakes not looking snakes not looking real.
Uh-huh.
How's the snake for you in this movie?
I don't have any...
better, doesn't it?
Yeah, everything looks better.
Yeah.
And I think they're aware of that because they do more in
with
terms
it.
They're doubling up on everything effects wise and scale wise,
right?
Because I think they're more confident about that their effects look good at this point.
All right, dear listeners,
and we've talked about that.
Tom and I are agreeing to disagree. So why don't you tell us what you think? Find us on Facebook, find us on Instagram or Twitter. Send us an email to the everythingsequel@gmail.com.